What's the worst April Fool's prank you've either done or had done to you? I was in 2nd grade. Our teachers loaded us up on a school bus and told us we were going to get pizza. We, being like 7 years old, were both stupid and excited. After we were all loaded on the bus and the head count was done, the teachers told us to quiet down for instructions, then they both said April Fools. And we had to go back to class. This was big news mistaken for a joke. I was born on April 1st. The birth was pretty hard on my mother and I. My mom had an estranged relationship with her mom, but thought she should know that she had a new grandchild, despite everything. My mom gave her the news via phone call. My grandmother's response? "What the frick? You called me for the first time in 2 years just to tell me a goddamn April Fool's joke? You're worthless." Then she hung up. My mother wept. My father called his mother-in-law and told her off, stating that she could visit me after I graduate high school. This tale actually has a happy ending. My grandmother actually drove 10 hours from her home to the hospital to apologize to my mother in person. She visited me, too. From there, her relationship with my mom improved and they were on good terms when my grandmother died in 1996. Got called into work by my boss. I sarcastically laughed and said nice try, and hung up. Next day I got called into the office being asked why I had an attitude for no reason when a simple sorry I can't come in was all she needed. Turned out she wasn't messing with me. Jokes and jobs just don't go well together. I once played a trick on a co-worker that the boss was looking for you. They said as soon as I found you to send you to their office. You better see what they want. So they get a little nervous, compose themselves and go into the boss's office. I'm laughing because the boss didn't call for anybody, I'm just watching to see what happens. They both just kind of awkwardly look at each other, and then my coworker walks out looking confused. She says, I think he forgot? When I was still in school I decided to wake the house up 4 hours early by changing the clocks and waking everyone up in a panic saying we're late. Joke was on me though as I was far too tired to function for the rest of the day though. Sister decided it would be our comedic to put glue on the door handle. 3 months later it wasn't sticky anymore. Uncle's wife was pregnant with her first and I, being a funny 12-year-old, decided for some reason to pull a prank on my grandma and tell her that her daughter-in-law went into labor and is giving birth to the baby in the garage. Grandma gets overwhelmed and heads outside while also trying to reach out to her son and other people to organize transport, only to find out Dill is just chilling in the garage tidying up stuff. Everybody gets mad at me and I get grounded. Fair enough. 4 hours later Uncle's wife goes into labor for real and ends up delivering the baby the same day on the first haha and I got to name the baby. My wife was 6 months pregnant and called me at work and told me her water had just broke. I pulled off one of the greatest pranks ever about 5 years ago. My granddaughter, then about 14 or 15, had this thing for llamas. I mean she had a thing. So I decided that it would be funny to get everyone I knew to text her April Fool's Day and ask simply, "Do you still have the llama for sale?" Regardless of what she responded, if she responded, they were to reiterate again, "Do you still have the llama for sale?" I carefully chose people I knew that were trustworthy and not in my area code. I had my brothers, sisters and friends from as far as California, Colorado, Oregon, Florida as well as friends from Canada and Mexico. I even got my cousin who lives in Japan to text her in Japanese. My rules were simple and the time frame was set to end at noon in her time zone, Central US. I was on the road to go visit the family and didn't realize that she was spending the night at her dad's. Sunday morning, she wasn't around but everyone let me know they sent their texts. She came into her mom's house, where I was, about 5 in the afternoon and I asked her, "Let me ask you something. Do you or do you not have the llama for sale?" The look in her eyes told me it went over well. She said she was totally blown away and couldn't get anyone to tell her where they saw the ad, or anything. Her dad was almost angry at her for something he had no idea about. We still laugh at it today, one of my best. My mom has a condition where she's constantly cold, even in the summer. My sisters took a master lock and put it through the prongs of her heating blanket. She responded in the middle of the night by dumping water on both of them while they were sleeping to find the key. Some context. When I was in my late teens I was in and out of the doctors a lot for abnormal bone growth. So all of my friends knew I had something wrong with me, just not exactly what. I was pretty scrawny looking, so I didn't exactly radiate the image of ideal health either. I'm 16 in high school, it's April 1st and I have an anxiety attack during class. Teacher doesn't believe me, because it's April 1st, my anxiety only gets worse. Now I actually can't breathe, my chest hurts and I'm desperately trying to not cry in front of a full classroom. The teacher makes me explain what's wrong, I barely get out, my chest hurts and my best friend stands up and starts explaining that I'm actually sick, and at some point I black out. I wake up 3 hours later in the hospital. Parents are there, they explain the anxiety attack, no big deal. I walk out into the little lobby area and all of my friends are there, all of them are ugly crying. They see me and mass hug me, I can barely understand them. I'm confused, my parents are confused. Finally one of my friends manages to stop long enough. I'm so sorry to hear you have cancer. I don't have cancer? My best friend, ha ha ha, April Fool's guys. Put an out of order sign on the men's bathroom at work. In tiny font I put April Fools. Left it for a few hours. No one realized it was a joke, so I felt a little bad. All the guys have to go find other bathrooms. One I've had done to me was by my dad. He twist-tied the handle down on the sink sprayer when he left for work. When I went to rinse out my cereal bowl I got sprayed in the face and had to change before I left for school. I was pissed as a teenager, but as an adult find it hilarious. Used to work in a nursing home. One year we took all of the furniture out of the administrator's office, and made it look like a patient's room. I'm talking bed, dresser, TV, medical equipment, the works, all along with a patient who was on it in the bed. When he came in the next morning he just about died laughing. One of my better memories from working in that shithole. I knew my boss was having a piano delivered that morning, so I told him that his wife called as it was too heavy and had fallen through TGE floor. He fell for it, but I'm sure it limited my career. One of my friends duct taped me to my bed on a night he was staying over, snuck out around 5 in the morning. I woke up around 8 and couldn't move. I was stuck there for 2 hours before my parents woke up to me screaming for them. Not too bad but funny. My 10-year-old daughter taped ketchup packets under the toilet seat so that when I sat down to pee in the morning all this Red Bull squirted into the toilet water. She got me. That's for sure. I called my dad. Put on my best Agent Smith voice. Is this the brave Lil Toaster's father? His full name. Pause. Yes? Repeated his name? Yes, we have a report here that you have been flagged for a delinquency to pay child support to a Jonathan Toaster. Silence. The record here shows that you have been delinquent for support to the tune of $19,864. Attempts have been made to collect, and it has been discovered that you have also been evading your taxes for a number of years. Who is this? This is William Turturro from the Federal Bureau of. Click. Hangs up the phone. I get a call from him a couple days later, telling me this crazy story about someone from the government calling him about child support and taxes. I say, was it William Turturro? Silence. Friccio. Click. I hung up on him. Ha ha ha, I'm going to hell. When me and my younger brother were little, we wanted to prank our mom. My brother had a slight cold. We looked up the worst possible diagnosis with these symptoms and basically claimed the doctor said that's what he likely had. Even looked up on how this disease was reported and how it was generally handled. Told her on the phone while she was at work, thinking we were being so funny. The disease we came up with was tuberculosis. Suffice to say mom left work early that day. That wasn't very pleasant for everyone involved. Easter fell on April Fool's Day a few years ago, so the Easter Bunny decided it would be funny to bring the kids 2 separate Easter baskets. One, that was left out in the usual place, that was filled with granola bars, nuts and other healthy snacks, and a second that was hidden that contained the usual array of chocolate. The kids were not impressed. My birthday is on April 2nd. When I was about 8 years old my dad told me on April Fool's Day that President Bush called and said there were no more birthdays, they were illegal. I believed the shit out of him and cried my eyes out. I still remember it very vividly. There's a reason I hate April Fools. I've been asked out, called hot, had someone say they liked me, had someone call me their best friend, been told I was interesting. All as a joke. I was working at a law firm. This was during the pandemic, so court was online. Chris goes into Dan's office and says, "Hey Dan, I'm double booked, can you act as my agent and get this preliminary hearing adjourned?" They do that for each other all the time, so he said no problem. He was joking about it and generally having a good time. You could feel the energy in the room change when Dan read the document Chris had given him. We had done up a phony certificate that said his son was being charged with drunk and disorderly. The best part is that when he figured it out he said that any good joke has to be paid forward. So he called his son and told him that he'd been served with something interesting from the court. Their conversation was something like, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" "No?" "You know you can tell me anything." "Yeah, I know. Because I get it. I was young and wild once too." He's the ultimate cool dad, and the son clearly didn't understand what was happening but was pretty nervous. I baked chocolate chip cookies that were actually mashed potato patties with black beans. My kids were 2 and 4 years old then and they still won't eat mashed potatoes. A friend of mine wanted to tell her boyfriend that we slept together. Luckily she told us her plan and my roommate and I were able to convince her it was a horrible idea. One year I mixed green food coloring into the scrambled eggs and served up green eggs and ham. My girlfriend thought it was disgusting and wouldn't eat them. They tasted fine, honest. The next year I separated the yolks from the whites and only put the coloring in the whites. Green eggs with yellow yolks and ham. She wouldn't eat them. And insisted that I was no longer allowed to make eggs on April 1st. On March 31st the next year, I very carefully used a hypodermic needle to inject green food coloring into the yolks of the eggs left in the container and put them back into the fridge. On the following morning I kissed her and rolled over while she went down to make breakfast. I think my parents, living a few towns away, heard her scream when she cracked green eggs into the frying pan. I miss her, she was a good girlfriend. Kept asking people if they had found my prank yet, did it for about 3 months. Finally cracked, there was no prank. I was lazy, but God was it funny. Showed up to 4th grade with a cast on my leg. Everybody immediately knew it was an April Fool's joke and I had to spend the rest of the day with a fake cast on my leg. My friend convinced me that, due to the proximity to Easter, the Pope had cancelled April Fool's Day and had it rescheduled for the following week. It worked. One time I superglued a giant dildo to the trailer hitch on my roommate's truck. Took him 2 weeks to find out it was there. In middle school I attempted to put laxatives in my teacher's coffee. She definitely didn't deserve it, I was just being a little shit. On the way to school a kid took some of them from me and ended up shitting himself. I'm thankful he did because I only got suspended for intent. If I followed through, I would have been expelled. My parents made me write an apology letter and made me do manual labor during the course of my suspension. It was a very formative experience for me and I'm glad the consequences weren't terrible. Best one was when I unscrewed the shower head in my brother's bathroom. I dried it out, filled it with Kool-Aid mix and then screwed it back on. When he came home from practice and hit the shower, red Kool-Aid sprayed all over. It looked like someone had been axe murdered in there and it was hell to clean up. He was pinker than usual for a day or two. I hooked a mouse to a friend's computer and moved it a tiny amount every few seconds. I live in the UK and we as a nation are having the worst April Fool's joke pulled on us tomorrow. The utility companies, every single one of them, are set to increase their prices. Almost every single family in the UK is looking at paying over double, per month, what they currently do. I worked the night shift at the front desk of my dorm on March 31st one year. Me and the other kid working took a sweatshirt and sweatpants, filled it with pillows and blankets, and made it look like someone fell asleep doing homework at the table in the back room. Scared the hell out of our boss when she went to wake him up and the dummy fell to the ground and split in half. When I was a military medic, a friend and colleague of ours had an arthroscopy on April 1st. As he worked on the ward he got allocated a side room. He was in theater for around an hour, but while he was having 3 operation we moved the calendar in the room forward 8 months and the clock on the wall forward by a few hours. Once he had woken up enough to be aware of the date and time there was a brief moment of panic and confusion before we was ordered by the lead nurse to tell him what we had done. I broke my neck in the summer of 2015. It required me to get a special chair at work. On April 1st, I got called into the office of my boss. Sitting in there were 3 new mothers who just returned from maternity leave. It was explained to me they needed my chair for a mother's lounge. I was stunned and speechless. I still needed the chair. I wouldn't be able to work without it. I felt anxiety and tears building up because I was so afraid to challenge them for fear of being called sexist or being insensitive man. They continued to explain to me why while I was in a mental fog. After a few minutes of stress, I finally got the guts to ask, "Is this an April Fool's joke? Why can't we just order them one?" They responded, "We can't wait for the chair to be ordered. This is not a joke." I left the office almost crying. I went to 2 of the women one-to-one after and asked them again if it was a joke. They repeatedly said it wasn't. Now, holding back even more tears, I went to our department managing director to explain what happened. He looked at me like I was the dumbest person ever hired there. And said, "You know what day it is, right?" Then, he walked down into our office space and everyone was laughing and saying they couldn't believe I fell for their April Fool's joke. Let's just say there are subjects that sensible people can assume others will not joke about: terminal illness, pregnancy, death, etc. Someone pranked me with one of those subjects. I of course believed it. Not cool. I was at a pub that had a jukebox. You couldn't play the same song twice, but I found out they had Nickelback's Photograph, the studio recorded version as well as the live version. I plugged in $20 and queued up those 2 songs alternating as many times as I could, then left the bar. If I were to estimate, I made those people listen to that song for at least 45 minutes. Nothing like pranking an entire pub. Oh man, lol. Was living in the barracks and my boy Steve broke into my room one day and superglued literally every single item possible to the surfaces. I'm like, cool, not a problem. I got you, bro. So I told Vinny to take Steve out on an errand or some shit because I was going to repay the favor. So I break into Steve's barracks room and I don't exactly know what to do while I'm in there. So naturally I end up taking a grocery bag and shitting in it, tying it off, placing it on the top of his refrigerator, and turning this heater up to 95 degrees. About 2 hours later Steve and Vinny arrive, and as we're all walking into the room Vinny is looking at me like, oh my god, what are we about to walk into, because I had let him know what was up. But alas, my friend Steve did not detect the scent of hot shit billowing out of his barracks room for reasons to this day I actually can't say. Vinny is looking at me like, what the frick? I'm trying not to die while thinking of what to do next. Vinny whispers to me, hide the bag in his backpack. Now here is where shit got interesting, literally. We were just about to deploy for Afghanistan. So we all had assault packs, which are pretty much backpacks with ammo and other necessary shit that you'd always be wearing while outside the wire. So I take the bag and I stuff it into essentially a hidden pocket of the assault pack. Steve then proceeded to pass through multiple layers of customs and in multiple different countries with my little gift completely undetected. Then, while in the middle of his very first firefight, he starts to go black on ammo and hits up his reserves inside his pack. And as he pulls out this long belt of 5.56 ammo from his pack like a damn magician, out comes the bag of poo attached it. By this time it has literally turned white and dusty. The look on my friend's face as he realized he had been carrying my shit across the world into the unknown was astonishingly unique. In the middle of hell, dudes were breaking down with uncontrollable laughter. Still hasn't forgiven me for this. Rock steady, roll easy. I used to work for an after-school program. We would write the schedule on a whiteboard so the kids would know what to expect for the afternoon. I wrote that they would be cleaning the entire school until their parents came. Oh yeah, and also, the beloved janitor was not allowed to let them use his equipment, so they would have to use toothbrushes. The reactions were mixed. Some of the younger kids were excited and wanted to claim their teachers' rooms. The middle ones were so angry and a few of the other ones knew it was a joke. Then I said April Fools. And everyone switched reactions, except for the older ones who were proud of themselves for knowing it was a prank. It wasn't bad. It was hilarious. Every year, I put something in my mom's coffee. One year, almond extract, the next, artificial butter flavor. When I was 10, I put salt in her coffee, then went to the bathroom. After wiping, realized there's blood on the tissue and in my underwear. Went to mom and asked her how she got me so good. It dawned on both of us at the same time and she just said something along the lines of welcome to womanhood. It wasn't me, I was just a witness. But a girl I went to high school with called her boyfriend, put him on speakerphone in front of a bunch of us, without him knowing, and told him she was pregnant to prank him on April Fool's Day. He started freaking out at her, yelling, cursing, and demanding she get an abortion. It was a pretty cruel prank because that reaction ended up getting him ostracized from the social circle and she dumped him not long after. Friend working under me had been coming in late a lot. Called him into my office, told him to sit down and explained to him that due to his excessive tardiness we were going to have to let him go and I needed his keys. With a really down look he handed them to me and was apologizing. I said, just freaking with you, ya twat, April Fools, but seriously need to be here on time. What do you want for lunch? Bought him a steak lunch and he was never late again. Yatta. I went to McDonald's with my friend. When he went to the bathroom I took the lid off his soda, placed an open ketchup sachet over the end of the straw and closed the lid of the soda again. Needless to say, his reaction was priceless, taking a big sip of ketchup. Stole combination to friend's locker at school. Made a literal garbage bag full of popcorn, air popped, I'm not evil. Snuck into school after hours. Opened his locker, taped newspaper covering most of his locker, poured popcorn behind paper. Closed locker. Pulled out paper. When he opened locker next day, popcorn spilled out everywhere and he couldn't close his locker again. April 1st is my birthday. When I was in college my mother called to say that she was dating someone and hoped I wouldn't be mad. I was happy for her. She then proceeded to tell me it was another woman whom she had been friends with for years. I told her I had always suspected as much, and that I was happy and proud of her for living honestly and being happy. Then she shouts, April Fools, happy birthday. And my response was a befuddled wait, so you claiming to be gay was meant as a joke? That's not even a good prank. I was genuinely happy for you and now I'm sad you're still alone. And she says, yeah, I guess that one wasn't well thought out. Other than the gem of stupidity, no one's ever pranked me on my birthday before, lol. Take restaurant ketchup packs, fold them in half, and place them under the nubs of all the toilet seats in the boys' washrooms at school. Yes, I got the idea straight out of a Captain Underpants book. One year a co-worker left his desk and neglected to lock his computer. I took a screenshot of his desktop, moved all his folders from his desktop and replaced his background to the screenshot of his desktop I took earlier. He came back and was confused why none of his folders, shortcuts or files on his desktop were working. From working in media I can tell you that the FCC has to send out a notice every year to remind everybody that they should not ever, under no circumstances, broadcast any kind of fake show or report because a fake broadcast once made a lot of people believe that aliens were invading. At my old job I made a passing comment to my supervisor that I have arachnophobia. I came into work on April 1st to find my desk covered in plastic spiders and the walls covered in high-res photos of various spiders. I walked out, sat in an unused workstation out of view of my usual desk, plugged in my laptop and stayed working. When my department head asked why I wasn't at my usual desk I told them I wouldn't be using it until someone cleaned it up. Came in the next day to find a clean desk and a little apology card for management. Which was unnecessary, but nice. Have you ever wanted to rip up an exam and not care? At the University of Colorado I found my chance and took it. I sat in on an economics exam on an April Fool's Day. The timing was everything. I arrived early and picked out a seat about 2/3 of the way up in the auditorium and took the test for 20 minutes. Finally, the teaching assistant closest to me finally went into a row away from me to answer a question. It was dead silent, as everyone was frantically completing the exam. To set the stage, this was April 1977 and the movie Network had just come out. I stood up in the aisle and yelled, "I'm as mad as hell." Suddenly all the eyes were on me. I continued, "And I'm not going to take this anymore." I ripped the test in half, threw it in the air, and ran screaming out of the auditorium. My girlfriend in the back watched the TAs pick up the exam pieces and check it out. They said, he was doing pretty well. I had taken the class the year before. True story. I faked my death on Facebook and it worked. Too well. I planned it for months, creating false profiles and friending myself months ahead of time so that my friendships with these fake people looked genuine. I wrote each persona with different grammar, writing style, slang, etc. Finally, the morning of April 1st arrived. I started posting to my wall from these profiles, again, each person sounding totally different through grammar etc., with things like "I just talked to your mom and I can't believe it," "RIP man" or "gone too soon," "I wish we'd had more time together." Then I went to work. After about an hour, people from my office started poking their heads in the door, seeing me, and going like "oh phew." My phone started blowing up. The comments from my real friends starting flowing in on my wall. I let it go on for a while until people started calling my boss. The receptionist finally had to be like, "Dude, I can't do this all day." I let everyone know it was a joke by photoshopping a newspaper with me fighting, like, a dragon in a TIE fighter and other stuff with the headline "Local Man Dies Saving the World from Everything" and sharing from my FB. A lot of people found it hilarious. A lot of people were very rightfully angry at me. I still get comments about it 10 years later, both good and bad, and I have to tread carefully with the people I offended. But honestly, no regrets. So I had this goldfish. It was huge. We named him Carney cause I won him at a penny carnival. My parents went out, bought a silver fish the exact same size and told me that Carney multiplied. We named the silver one Mercury. It ended up jumping out of the tank and committing suicide a few years later. What was your April Fool's story? Share it with us in the comments section.